Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Mum Show. We are so glad you've joined us today because we're talking about words and the way that we say them. So grab yourselves a cup of tea, make yourselves comfortable and let's get started. Welcome back to The Mum Show. My name is Marina and I'm joined by child therapist Emma Brown and Pastor Clare Hooper. Today we are going to be having a chat about words and the way that we say our words, the power that words communicate. Is it true that life and death is held in the power of the tongue? And if so, what does that mean for us as mums? Good topic for you today, girls, and a challenging one, I think.
I think challenging, yeah.
It is challenging, isn't it? Because there's so much. My dad used to have this phrase that he used to say to us all the time. It's not what you say, it's the way that you say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we'd go like this. Oh, you're so pretty, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Go, Marina, and you go, what? I was just saying she was pretty.
Yeah.
Because, you know, one of four sisters. Or, you know, there's things like that you'd say all the time. Oh, that's really clever. Like, I think sarcasm's like a British thing, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you'd like
very British.
cut each other down in a second with like a really sarcastic comment.
It's interesting. You know that we often talk about that bit of research, don't we, about how much we take from the language that we use. And I think, you know, that famous study that was done, I think back in the 50s or 60s, that said there was basically that 93% of what is communicated is done not without words. So it's not the meaning of the words, it's the tone of voice and our body language. And it's only 7% is the actual words and the language that we use. I mean, I think I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
But I think that comes into play when there's a discrepancy. So a bit like your example of, you're so pretty, aren't you? You know, that is, you know, the words that we're saying and the tone of voice don't match up, do they?
So my daughter calls it a stink eye.
Oh.
I don't know, a stink eye. Like when someone goes, like that. And so, she gave me the language. Yeah, the death stare. I can't remember what we used to call it when I was little.
Yeah,
I can't remember what we called it actually.
Dirty's giving someone the dirty.
Dirty, giving someone a dirty. She just gave me a dirty.
Yeah, totally.
But she gave me the language for that. So one day I said something to her and I can't remember what I said and she went, don't give me the stink eye, mummy. And I was like, got it, stink eye, brilliant. So then now I can say to her, did you just give me a stink eye? You know, if I say, did you make your bed? Yes, it's made. So it's,
Language is so important, isn't it? Like, I mean, language develops when you're with another human being. That's why children, I don't know if you find it, when they're off school for a week, their vocabulary develops. Or when you might have been at work for a few weeks and you get to take a weekend off, and they're home with you and their whole language develops. So do you remember that?
Yeah.
And it's because it develops when you get to spend time. They say something, you repeat it, they repeat it, you give them a new word. And that's how language, that's why it's so important to develop a family culture where there is a positive language in your home.
Yeah. Because kids can be really cruel with each other, can't they? They can be so cutting with their words and so fleeting. Like, I know I've seen times when I've seen my kids be on a receiving end or on a giving end of an insult, and they get over it so quickly, but the poor victim is left feeling labelled at times, aren't they?
Yeah, and I actually think it's even worse now with you know, kind of how we use social media.
Totally.
Because if you think about only that 7% is the actual words, when you're getting a text message or you know, a message from somebody, how on earth do you know what is really meant through that? They can be so easily misconstrued, can't they? And have a huge impact. Words have a massive impact on how we feel, I think. How we feel about ourselves, how we think about the world. I think it's,
And I thank God for emojis, if I'm honest.
Oh, emojis,
I'm fine. Smiley face, phew. You know, it's okay. It could be. It's okay. You don't have to read it, and then if somebody puts a fist pump, oh yeah, it really is okay. You know, like it's like the emoji has become like the body language to go with the word.
It's true.
I do that. I phone if I say to my mum, "Can you have the kids?" and she texts me back, "Okay," and I'm like, "Is that okay, or okay, or like where are we on that okay right now?
We've got a poster in our downstairs bathroom that says "You look fine," and somebody came out one day and said, "Is it you look fine or you look fine?" I was like, I suppose it's whichever one you feel like, but it's just one phrase above the mirror, and I'm like, oh yeah. Without somebody saying it, you don't know the intention of what's being said.
No,
Words are so powerful.
They are so powerful, and actually, if we look at younger children, they're still learning to master them. I mean, my kids for ages would say things like, "My like it," or "My like that," and my little boy, where he's had some speech delay that has kind of come from quite extreme dyslexia, and so for ages he would say things like, "Can you make me porridge on the corn instead of on the hob?" Just like completely random words. And when they're in this place of like really trying to master and get a grip on language, how do we start to help them then navigate around using words wisely when they don't always have an extensive vocabulary, and trying to encourage our kids to be gentle with their words? What do you think we can do to help them in that?
I mean, I think we've got to understand where they're at developmentally. I think we've got to kind of have realistic expectations of our children, don't we? And I guess the most important thing, we go on about this all the time on the Mum Show, is modelling how we choose to speak, how, you know, choosing our own words, being really mindful of the way that we speak to each other, having a culture within our home environment of speaking life and speaking positivity to each other. I think that is incredibly important. But you know, but I also think it's important to kind of have banter as well, and to be able to kind of have a little bit of kind of gentle ribbing. If that's what feels okay in your family, and you know, you're kind of up for that, then there's no harm in that. But it's helping children to understand the difference, and that comes over time, doesn't it?
But you have no-go words, don't you, in your home? You've got like words that your kids know you can't go there.
Yeah, I think just to have the ones especially that label each other. I think the last place you should be labelled incorrectly in the home is in the home, you know, like, and so we don't let our kids call each other names like idiot or stupid or label them. I don't mind them saying, "I'm really cross with you. You've frustrated me." That really bothered me, to articulate themselves. And we would say to our children, especially when they're younger, use your words. You have a much bigger vocabulary than that. Express yourself. Tell me what is going on. What's at the root of that? And you don't always have time to, you know, go through a therapy session with your children. But if you can pause and reflect, it's super important, because the Bible says this: wise words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose. And when our children are small, unless they're taught what their influence and the power of their words and their tone towards things, they're just going to struggle when they bump into it, because they're going to bump into that later in life when they disappoint somebody. You've seen it. Have you ever done that? When you've said something, you see the look in their eye and you're like, "Oh, I wish I could eat those words back. Like, I shouldn't have said it like that." Or, you know,
encouraging I statements is probably a really good one. Help it, and again, that's more than just about language and words. It's helping, again, children to tune into themselves and recognise what it is that's going on for them.
To try and get that filter moving.
Yeah, because often, you know, a child who gets bumped in the playground, maybe immediate reaction might be, "You're stupid, you're clumsy," or "Why have you just done that?" Whereas actually you need to get them to recognise, "Oh, that didn't feel
own their feeling.
Own their feeling. Or, I felt scared when you bumped into me like that." You know, being able to just help them to tune in and use I statements rather than kind of you statements or blaming statements.
But kids, like younger children, if we kind of focus on that age for a little bit, younger children, they will believe what you tell them often. You know, if you tell them that the Easter Bunny is going to turn up, they will believe that there is an Easter Bunny. You know, they just buy into it. And so what would you suggest to undo lies that a child has been told? So if a child has been, I'm not talking about the Easter Bunny, but if a child has been told, you know, "You are stupid," for instance, and they've received that as fact, and they've received that from multiple people, like perhaps outside the home, how would you start to unpick that? What would you suggest? What would you say would be a good way of doing that?
We as a family have pulled out some what we call promises of God, and we've gone through the Bible and pulled out really simple like words and sentences and phrases that Jesus has said or others have said that are really easy for children to get a hold of. You know, I am a spirit-filled witness of Christ. I have, you know, all now as I'm thinking, you know what I mean? Fearfully and wonderfully, you know what I mean? That just as you need to pull on these things, you forget them in the moment. But going through for your family and finding some easy phrases that you can pull out and using them in everyday language, not just going, the Bible says. Actually, do you know you're fearfully and wonderfully made? You know, actually, you've been made to be your royalty. You're a son of the Most High God. God is your Father in heaven. And there's lots of ways that you can say that, and it gives them a confidence boost, and it's the basis of which then they can help them make decisions and know what to say. So then I would say, you mustn't use words like that. You're better than that. There's a better vocabulary in there than that. You actually got, I suppose, giving them an alternate narrative to use. Absolutely. They bump into all sorts, even in you. Like, I took my daughter shopping a couple of years ago, and it was an anxious time for us. We don't shop very well together. I should learn this. She should go with her dad. And she really doesn't like things, and you take some, you go to get something off the hanger, and she goes, no, don't like it. I'm like, you've not even seen it. And so already it was a bit anxious. We got into the dressing room and to change her in to try something on, she started crying, and she said, you're just always so disappointed in me when we go shopping. And actually, I'm not. I'm disappointed in me because I can't connect with her. And so it's not her I'm frustrated in, but I am showing and exhibiting to her in my body language and in my words that I'm disappointed in her. And that's what she read. And I was like, oh, I've got to change this because I want her to have a body confidence, and I want her to be confident to be herself. And yet the very thing I want in my anxiety, I'm projecting that onto her.
Absolutely. I love that idea of just basically what you're saying is take away that negative language by replacing it with a new one, isn't it? It's replacing it with like a heavenly language of who your identity is, which
that's exactly what I was trying
everything
to say.
comes back down to, doesn't it? What your identity in Christ is.
That's much more coherent.
Thanks. Shall we have a listen to our kids?
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Here they are.
And action. I think words matter because if someone says something mean to you, you might not like it and you might say something mean back.
Can you think of a time that someone has said something to you that made you feel really good? What were those words?
I got called I'm really good at football, so that made me feel really happy. Just it's like a warmth went into my heart because I felt like really happy thinking that person sees me and thinks me as something good, so I just thought that were really good for me.
When a friend said I was a really good friend to have.
And how did that make you feel?
Happy.
Some random person just came and said that I had a nice hat, and it made me smile.
Who gives you the nicest words in your life?
My family and my friends saying nice things to me.
Because family and friends care about you.
A time that made me feel sad was when I was just playing football at school and someone was jealous of me and they said that you're really bad at football to just get to me, so I just went away feeling, oh, well, I'm not good at football then.
And what do you do when you've been hurt by somebody's words?
Well, there's a few different ways you can say something back to them. You can forgive them, or you can just go away and not talk to them anymore. I think the best one would be to forgive them, because you know that they know that you're a good person.
What do you think people need to know about words? What do they need to think about?
That say nice words or people will be nice to you.
You might get a reputation of the person who's just mean to you and even a bully. If you just say mean things to people, they need to know that words are hurtful, and if you're going to say something kind to someone.
That if you treat someone in a certain way, if you treat them badly, then don't be surprised when if they do the same thing back to you.
It's kind of like crushing dreams for other people, because if you wanted to do something, you can do it, and if you get told that you can't, it actually makes you think something about yourself.
You can think, oh no, actually, I think I'm not actually, I might not be as good as I thought.
yeah, I am bad at that thing, so why should I do it when I'm older? Things that people say can be hurtful, but if they do say things to me, just ignore them, because you know that if you know you're good at it, you should do it.
Such earnest children, aren't they? They've got so much wisdom there. I think when you look at the kids in that place and they're happy and they're sat on the little mum show dog and they're having a chill out and they're talking, the idea that somebody would say something cruel or hurtful to them, it feels quite powerful, doesn't it? Like, I think if they were going crazy and misbehaving, you'd be like, oh, those kids. But when you see them in their vulnerability and their fragile childhood state, you think, oh gosh, words must be really powerful to you. And I think, like, we talk all the time about modelling it, but when it comes to words, it's more powerful than that, isn't it? It isn't just a simple case of saying we're modelling it so they copy us. Actually, you know, it's true. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. We create for our children what we're speaking over them.
Yeah, and we can't protect them either completely. You know, we can put in all this good stuff, can't we? We can speak life in our home. We can create that, but we can't control what they're exposed to. You know,
what we can control is our behaviour.
Yeah,
and I think that's what we need to. Yeah. That's what we need to kind of be thinking about as parents, isn't it? Yeah. Because one of those boys said, "People will say it, but you just have to ignore them, and you have to know, and you know that." He has had good stuff put in him.
Absolutely.
You know he's got good stuff put in him.
He's got Xavier is interesting because I think the boy on the end is called Xavier. I think he's obviously, words are very important to him. That came out, and actually if you do the love languages test, if you've done it with your children, it's a great test to do. And you can find out which one of those things, maybe words of affirmation might be really high up in your child's life. I'd be interested to know if that was his love language. I think words, I wonder if God made it a really narrow amount of language, like that is impacting what, you know, the body language, is because it was like, because words are like darts, that's what they're like, they're like arrows, aren't they? You say something and I mean, for starters, it spoke the world into being when God spoke a word, and Jesus is referred to as the Word. And I think sometimes it's because it's that. Sometimes something's narrow because it's so important. Yeah. You know, actually, this is the everyday, your body language, your everyday, but your words, they have a narrow gap that you have to follow and you have to really think about it. It's why your testimony is so important. The story of your life, it's why it tells everybody. Verbally as well, write that down. I mean, you love storytelling. Yeah. And you, so what was it about storytelling that attracted you? Was it because it was words?
Yeah, I think so.
Language?
I totally agree with you. Words are creative, not just in an imagination kind of point of view, but they are creative, they are powerful, and you can create whole worlds sort of like in through the words that you're bringing people. And I find that fascinating. In fact, there's a lot of studies that show that when you create stories and words for your children, that it does amazing things in their brains because it's that anticipation of what's coming next. And I think that words are incredibly powerful, and you have that whole thing of a self-fulfilled prophecy, don't you? So if you're saying to a child, you're an idiot all the time, that child is going to go on and become consumed by that sense and take that identity on. I love the proverb about the wise woman builds her house, but with her own foolish hands tears it down. And to me, that's so much about words. Yeah. Because your children and your family, your husband is your house, that's your home, that's what you're building. And I think that the way that we relate to each other and the way that we speak to each other, we need to be making sure that word is something that is planting a good seed. Absolutely. And not something that's going to be tearing it down.
Absolutely, both the internal and the external monologue. Yeah. What you tell yourself in between these two temples here and what you speak out, both those things.
But what's really important is, as parents, I think we need to understand that our children grow up internalising our voices. So, and I can,
so
you know,
true.
a lot of the work, a lot of the work that I do with adults in therapy is really trying to work out whose voice are you listening to inside your head.
Gosh, that's so powerful.
Whose voice is that? Was that a critical mother?
Yeah.
Who just kind of, you know, needed to kind of pull you down and criticise you? Have you internalised that and held on to it? And how do you start to challenge that voice? And for our children as well, whose voices are they hearing? Whose voices are they internalising and repeating to themselves? Because that's, you know, we're created socially. We're created to kind of Sometimes there's a phrase called a chorus of voices. We are. What is the self? The self is a chorus of voices.
Yeah.
We're made up of all the different relationships that we have in life, and we internalise those voices.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly important.
Because our kids aren't going to know, are they? They're not going to know. If we go away, and I think that's the power of the apology as well. If we can think something and process something in our adults' minds, but there's no point just trying to change behaviour if we're not actually going to verbalise sometimes. You know, I was wrong in what I said there. That isn't a problem, or I don't think that about you. Let me put this right and tell you something that I do think. I mean, what are some of the things in therapy that you would do if a parent sat here thinking, oh gosh, I've gone through a really tough season in life. In fact, I'm speaking to my child the way people spoke to me. I know what it did to me, but I don't know how to stop, or I do know how to stop, but I don't know how to change the narrative now. What would you say to those parents?
Well, I think it depends on kind of their own story, really. And I know I say this a lot, but I think it's so important for people, for all of us as parents, to kind of look back, make sense, understand why do we have this kind of strong, harsh, critical, judging voice that we tell ourselves, because we can't then expect our children to kind of we can't expect that to not carry on unless we're prepared to challenge it within ourselves. And sometimes that means going for therapy, but often perhaps you don't need that. Perhaps you just need to be able to kind of make yourself vulnerable, talk to people that you feel safe with about those things that have happened, and then start to recognise our thoughts. Our internal dialogue is pretty much constant, isn't it? Yeah. We're not aware of it all the time, but it's there. So increase your awareness. Really start to tune into that voice. What is my voice telling me? Am I speaking life to myself? And if I'm not, why am I not? And how do I begin to challenge that? But doing it in a self-compassionate way. I talk quite a bit in therapy about the second arrow. And actually, the first arrow is that kind of harsh, critical voice. We've talked about words being arrows, haven't we? So that first arrow is the heart, is the kind of the oh God, you got that wrong, Emma, again. You're so stupid. Why do you always do that? That's the first arrow. And the second arrow is when I recognise, oh, I've done that thing again. I'm doing that self-critical thing, and then I beat myself up for that. Why do I keep doing this? I keep doing this. So instead of giving yourself the second arrow, it's like, oh, okay, what? Yeah, I'm doing that thing again. When I really feel, I go to that kind of self-critical place. Actually, how can I bring self-compassion to that?
Absolutely.
I can make sense of that because this is what I experienced growing up. Yeah. But actually, what do I need to do to change that? Maybe there's an alternative way of viewing myself and viewing it.
That's so important, though. There's the moment where Jesus says, "You brood of vipers." He's talking about, and he says, that the way you talk, it's the overflow of your heart. Yeah. And actually, when you consider, that's how important it is as mums for us to be mindful of the position that we're in. Absolutely. Because if we're in a place of being self-critical, and we're in a place of self-loathing, and we're in a place where we're frustrated, like you were saying with Gracie, I was frustrated with myself. Yeah. But how that comes out, the overflow of that is the child feeling like we're frustrated with them or critical of them, which is really scary, isn't it? It's important.
But you were able to kind of recognise that when you did, and it's only from recognising it that we can shift it and do something different.
Stopped, paused. I apologised to her. I was like, I explained to her, I was like, I'm not disappointed in you. I am disappointed that I haven't got what you need. Yeah. And I'm sorry for my words, or I'm sorry for the way that I speak, so Mum's going to try her best to fix it. And she was like, it's all right, Mum. Yeah.
Let's get an ice cream.
Let's go do something else. And actually, again, Proverbs, like,
I know. Just live in Proverbs for a bit.
Just read out a few Proverbs rather than speaking. If you can't say anything good, say a proverb. Genius. Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body. I just don't think you can ever underestimate the power of kindness. Yeah, the power of saying something kind, speaking it in a kind way. And the old saying, if you can't say anything good, don't say anything at all.
But that takes you've got to. It's intentional, isn't it? Be intentional with our words, and avoid labelling our children. I think that's
starting with being intentional with our inner words.
Ourself, How do we
so
speak to
interesting.
ourselves? And then allowing them, understanding the knowing the voice of God. We've got a whole episode on knowing God's voice.
Yeah,
so
we
can't
have,
really go
we
into
have.
it. So they need to catch up and watch that episode. But understanding what God's voice is. Have you ever been in that position where you go into worship and you're about to lift your hands and you suddenly remind yourself, or the enemy reminds you of something bad you said or did? And that just forces you to retreat. When we live in that place of negativity, we allow the enemy to overwhelm us. We don't always reach towards, leave something else behind and reach towards what God's, and the power of words.
And it's true as
It's
well,
evident
because
in that,
and the more we use those words and those language, actually it helps our kids. Going back to that idea that you know, we are reflecting God to our children. It helps them to get into His presence as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Definitely.
it does.
I had a funny situation with my daughter, and I kept saying to her, like, can you just stop trashing your bedroom? Like, can you just, your room is trashed. And I kept using this word trash, which isn't actually a very British word to use. But there was actual physical trash.
Yeah.
There was actual rubbish. Like, I'm not talking about this general chaos. There was crisp packets. Like, we don't even have crisps in our house. I don't even know where these came from. There was screwed up paper, apples, snotty tissues. Now, I'm not going to child shame any further, but it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And I really can't cope with chaos, and I just can't cope with chaos around me. And I walked in, I can't cope with them having chaos around them, and I was like, there's just, your room's trashed. Oh my goodness, it's just trashed, Lilia. And I'm like, I'm okay. I'm speaking gently. I'm speaking kindly. I'm not up in her face. I'm just telling her her room is trashed. And I'm saying it in a really nice voice. She burst into tears. And she went, you think I'm rubbish. You think I'm trash. You think my room is trash and I am trash. And I was like, where did you get that from? And she was like, if you think everything I own is trash, then that's what you think of me. And I was like, no, I mean that. And actually, rather than, I just had to go, okay, I'm sorry. Could we remove the litter? Could we clear the litter from the room? Because actually that word had become so powerful to her, and she'd fixated on it. And we went into the lounge, and Dominic went, have you sorted your room out, Lilia? Because it's proper trashed. And I went, no, you mean not so tidy? And she looked at me and she was like, yes, thank you, much better. But it just really hit me just how powerful that one word had become. And I thought, I'm so glad I had the opportunity to turn that back, because she'd seen it as a label of herself. And it was just one word. Thank you so much for joining us once again. We hope you go on and have a very blessed day, and we'll catch you next time.
Hello parents, don't forget to say hello. We're at promisecollective.co.uk. Bye!